we found a lot of old scrap metals. These scrap metals, bolts, wrenches, if you zoom up over here, were obviously part of the old mining system that they brought up. So what's constantly happening, I mean, if you look at these nuts and bolts and screws, was all from the mining. Whether these were the shafts that De Beers sunk in, or whether it was the old mining pulleys that were put up in the 1880s by the small miners, hard to tell. But definitely a lot of history and a lot of old mining material. So quite incredible. Yesterday we found an old World War II boot. So tons of history. If you film over there, come around this side, you'll see the blue ground. That's kimberlite. You see the kimberlite rocks in between there. Obviously it runs in different channels coming out. More pulling systems of old mining equipment. Got a lot down there. So you actually notice how much of the ground we've actually gone down. But you'll see over there, there's lots of kimberlite. So what we've done is we've reduced the ground to a point where we start seeing less kimberlite rock. Obviously these kimberlite rocks that you see over here came out of the pit itself. This wasn't natural occurrence of kimberlite rocks. What has been broken out from the pipe, which is sitting just to the left of us, and then that was dumped here back at the time in the 1880s to 1907. This was probably one of the old carriage where they used to remove material in. So you'll see here the old materials and old metals that they've been using. This was obviously done for the mining shafts. And you'll see the cabling, the old steel cabling that was used probably for the pulleys, the wrenches. Most likely this was used down for the shaft. I'm assuming this was down at the time when De Beers ran their incline shaft. So you'll see the old metals that was put here on the scraps from the shaft themselves. These were all rollies. You could see that they'd kept the pulley rollies for the cables. A lot of good scrap metal with history. When we come over here, this construction that you see here was what we've discovered as we've started removing all the soil. This was obviously, well, we're assuming, which was built later than the 80s, 1980, probably at the time between the 1950s. This was probably support for the wrenching systems that went into the pipe. You see the cement and the steel bolts that were enforced over here in order to support all the pulling out of the pipe itself or out of the big hole, which they did back then. We've had heavy rains. You can see with all the heavy yellow equipment, the ground's been a challenge to work on. Sometimes the front loaders aren't able to lift the load because the soil is being so wet. So fortunate today, we got some blue skies, some sunshine that's helping dry up the ground, but we're expecting some more rains over the weekend. So unfortunately the weather is not something we can control, but we're pushing forward as hard as possible.